This presentation will be the second of two presentations on some of the worst war atrocities committed by the Japanese military during World War II. Now, we've already learned about the secret experiment operation called Unit 731. The invasion and assault on Nanking, China is really one of the world's most brutal occupations in recorded human history, yet it's one of the least talked about. As you'll see, the Japanese military, under orders of their commanding officers, brutalized and or murdered an estimated 300,000 civilians, not military, but civilians, during an 8-week period of time. Now again, I want to refresh you here, but to understand why Japan was so aggressive towards their neighboring countries, it's important to understand their mindset and motivations during this time. Now, like we'd mentioned before, like the Nazis in Germany, there was some extreme racist views that many of the Japanese held, but they held them regarding other Asian countries. Now, many believed that the Japanese people were superior to any other people in the world. They believed that their genetics, their culture, and their military were superior. In addition to these racist views, Japan had limited natural resources within their own islands. Now, like many countries, they had suffered terribly during the Great Depression, and in order to get their economy productive again, they began to invest in their military, which it did put people back to work, and once their military was strong enough, they began invading other countries who had the natural resources that they wanted so badly. Now, in December of 1937, the Japanese troops, they invaded the capital of China, which was Nanking, and this began an 8-week period of killing and of terror. Now, once they had secured the city, there was an order that was given. It was called a Kill All Captives Order, and it was issued by the military command. The Japanese soldiers, they began executing young men that they had thought had been part of the Chinese military. And once these young men were eliminated, the Japanese soldiers turned their attention to the remaining civilians that were left in the city. Now, like I mentioned before, by the end of this 8-week period, an estimated 300,000 Chinese had been executed. Their bodies were thrown in ditches, and many of them thrown in the rivers just to be swept away. Now, women of the city were not safe during this time. Now, as many as 80,000 female, and their ages ranged anywhere from 8 years old all the way to older grandmothers, were systematically raped by the Japanese soldiers. This is one of those events that really is extremely underreported as far as the brutality that happened in this 2-month period of time. Now, to put this carnage in perspective, more Chinese civilians were killed during this 8-week period than the countries of England, France, and Belgium combined. Those 3 countries combined, there was more killed in this city during that 8-week time than those 3 countries lost during the whole war. It's staggering. We're looking at civilian deaths. More in that 8-week period in China were killed than civilians were killed in England, France, and Belgium during the whole war. And ultimately, no arrest, no trials, just mass executions. Now, it seems reasonable that those who committed these crimes and those officers who gave the orders to the soldiers, they would have been charged with war crimes at the end of the war. It's absolutely criminal. There's just no question about it. The sad reality is that no high-ranking officer was ever charged or ever convicted for their actions at Nanking. To add insult to injury, many of the officers who were in charge of the soldiers at this time are still today regarded as war heroes in Japan. So very, very quickly, that is about a brief introduction as I can give you. What's been called the rape or the massacre at Nanking that happened in China.